Hello.
Hello, Mr. We're ready to start when you are.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. It is 5:31 on Monday, June 8th, 2026. And I call this regular meeting to order. We are at the Jerry Roby District facility. There are 5 board members attending the meeting this evening, 4 members in person, Board Member Todd, Board Member Cirincione, Board Member Kenyon, and Board Member Zimmerman. I, Board Member Schmidt, am calling in remotely. We can move on to item 1.2, the Pledge of Allegiance. Member Kenyon, will you please lead us in the pledge? All right. Moving on to administrative reports, item 2.1, attendance and enrollment report. Any board member questions or comments about any of these?
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay. If we could pull up the attendance average, please. So I just want to congratulate the district really and our individual schools who we were able to increase that attendance percentage almost an entire percent from last year. So I know over the last 2 years and really since COVID, because you can really see the difference in the attendance rate from them, that we've been working towards it. So it's nice to see the progress happening. And I know that there are a lot of individual phone calls and conversations that go along with this to make this happen. I also just wanted to highlight Westar, who increased their attendance rate by 2% from last year, which is a great job, especially in a big school. That's, hard to do. So appreciate everyone's work that allowed that to occur. And then if we could open up the enrollment count, please. So, um, as I've kind of done every month for transparency's sake, from April to May, we are down 14 kids. And then we're down 79 from May of last year. And from August to May, we only gained 13. And so that will be a conversation later. I feel like for me personally, because of the concern with the ADM, is that this entire year we only gained 13 kids. And now that the year is over, I feel like, we can make some statements and some considerations. So I just think that is important. And that's all I have for this agenda item.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from any other board members on this one? All right, then we can move on to item 2.2, the monthly budget report for May 2026. Questions or comments? Anyone to speak to this? No?
There was no comments.
All right, thank you. Then we will move on to agenda item 3.1, approval of the regular agenda. Can we have a motion, please?
Motion to approve their regular agenda form consistent with Board Policy 1-302 and temporarily suspend governing board policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We can take the vote. Board Member Todd,
Aye.
Member Kenyon,
Aye.
Member Zimmerman,
Aye.
Member Cirincione,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 5-0. Item 3.2, Governing Board Update. We will start with Mr. Todd, please.
Madam Chairman, what agenda number are we on?
3.2.
Okay, I show that as 3.1 on mine. And
Oh,
I'm a little confused because you did administrative reports and then you did the approval of the regular agenda. So there's something a little out of order.
that is the order that it is on my agenda that I am looking at on board docs right now.
For my board report, I attended the graduation at Rainbow Valley. I'd like to thank the staff. They did a great job putting that together. Also to Mr. Young, we had no flags for the stage and he was able to get some brought down really quick for the graduation. So I appreciate that, Bob. It's always nice being able to call you and get quick response. Also attended the move up ceremony over at West Star. It's always cute to see the young kids get to move up. The 7th graders are happy to be heading into 8th grade. The kindergartners are happy to be moving into 1st grade. And I think the 3rd graders are always excited to be out of K through 3 and moving up. So it was a nice event. It was well attended. Goodyear Police was there, and it's great to see the police department be involved in our communities. And there were a couple officers that were there and interacting with the kids. So it was really great. The only other thing I have is received a couple parents who have seen me in the community and asked me, and I'll just ask staff if they can look into this, but there needs to be a contact number for the yearbook provider for West Star. Some parents have received extra yearbooks, wrong yearbooks. They got a mailing that came out and things are wrong. So if staff can just figure out a phone number, but there's a number there, you email it, then they say text, you text. It just seems to be a runaround, but I could talk to staff about that a little bit later, but I do think we need to be having our vendors provide better customer service to all the schools. And I don't know if this company is just at West Star or other schools as well, but we'll talk about that, I guess, offline after the meeting. Otherwise, that's the only report I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kenyon?
Yeah, thank you. It's been an exciting time. I was able to attend the graduation ceremony over at Liberty, and it was just a great time. Everything went off really well. It's the first year that they actually had one of the students get up and with their acoustic guitar and sing a song for the graduation, and it was very moving. It was very nice, well done, and along with our elementary, middle school kids, there were also a lot of graduates and our families out of the high schools, and so we had to run right from this ceremony to a different ceremony, and it's a very busy time. But wanted to congratulate all those families, all those kiddos who moved up or graduated, all the staff for putting in a great year, and I just wanted to say that. I also want to congratulate Mr. Young. This is going to be his last meeting with us because he is going to be able to sit back on a lawn chair at the beach and enjoy himself, and he deserves it. He's retiring and very grateful for all the service he's provided for not just our districts, but all the districts in the Valley that he's been a part of, and we're very thankful for him. A very key position and person, so it's going to be some big shoes to fill, so thank you. Oh, well, you're retiring from us. All right. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Zimmerman?
Thank you. I just have a couple things. I was able to attend the promotion at Estrella. It's always an honor to be able to attend a promotion as a governing board member. And, it's just an exciting time in students' lives, and it's fun to see the connections that they have with their school and their teachers as they move on. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate. I also would like to take this time to do some end of year celebrations from the Acadians testing. I appreciate that Dr. Sloat was able to get the DAP back up so that we're able to have access to those things. So I just have a couple things. For the highest number of kindergartners meeting or exceeding the benchmark at 94% was Estrella. First grade students, the highest number of first grade students meeting the benchmark or above was Estrella at 83%. The highest number of second grade students meeting at or above benchmark at 81% was Estrella. And then the third grade students, which is going to be their first time taking the state testing, the highest number of students at or above benchmark was 82% at Westar. So just great to see those things occurring. Some other great growth that we had at Freedom, their kinder had a growth of 19 percentage points from last year to this year, who were either meeting or above benchmark. So that was a great growth number at Freedom. And their second grade also went up 15 percentage points. So clearly they are, making great gains, which is really important to celebrate as well. And LBA, their second grade went up 21 percentage points from last year to this year. So, obviously we always want to see our proficiencies high, but it's also important to celebrate the growth along the way. So I appreciate, obviously all of our schools, but just wanted to take a moment to celebrate some great things that are happening. So that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Cirincione?
Yes, I was going to wait till the 5.3, but just in case it doesn't get pulled, I want to thank you for your service and your dedication and your hard work at the district. I know I called you personally, but I want to publicly say thank you. You're going to be missed. I appreciate your professionalism since you've been here. To me, it feels like you just kept your head down, did your job, stayed out of the craziness that happens sometimes. I really appreciate that, and any school district's lucky to have you, so thank you.
All right. And I don't have much this time, but I do want to thank Mr. Young for the work that he's done for the district and wish him well as he's moving on to his next adventure. But that's all that I have for this board update. So we can move on to 4.1, public comment. Ms. Zimmerman, would you please call out public comment this evening?
We just have one tonight, and that is Megan
Okay.
Canan.
Good evening. My name's Megan Canan, and I reside in District. Tonight, I want to address the importance of professionalism, preparation, and accuracy from those serving on this board. First, it is deeply disappointing to continue seeing board members speak down to, demean, or publicly criticize one another in meetings, whether disagreements exist or not. The way board members communicate with each other matters. The public, staff, students, and family are watching. When board members treat one another disrespectfully, it damages public trust and creates the perception of dysfunction within both the board and the district. Healthy disagreement is a part of governance. Personal attacks, dismissive behavior, and speaking to fellow board members with disrespect should never become normalized. Professionalism and mutual respect should be the standard, especially from elected leaders who are expected to model appropriate conduct for the entire district community. Second, it is critical that board members fully educate themselves on items that come before the board prior to voting or publicly discussing them. Misunderstanding terminology, procurement processes, or district procedures leads to confusion for both the board and the public. For example, there has recently been confusion surrounding the term RFQ. In procurement, terminology matters. In a formal solicitation process, RFQ stands for Request for Qualifications. This is a detailed procurement method that generally takes a minimum of approximately 45 days when rushed, because it involves evaluating qualifications and following a structured process. However, an informal procurement setting RFQ commonly refers to request for quotes, which is typically used for purchases ranging from $10,000 to $999,000. These are entirely different processes with entirely different requirements. Additionally, when conducting an informal RFQ, it is permissible to close the solicitation before the original due date if the minimum required number of responses has already been received. In most cases, that minimum response is 3 quotes. That is a standard procurement practice and not unusual or improper. I also want to address another statement that continues to be repeated publicly, that if a district applies for a grant and later chooses not to accept it, the district will somehow be blackballed from future grant opportunities. That is simply not accurate. School districts frequently apply for grants and later determine that they are unable to accept them due to staff limitations, timing, matching fund requirements, program capacity, or changing district priorities. In those situations, districts may absolutely apply again in the future if the grant opportunity remains available. Declining a grant does not automatically disqualify a district from future opportunities. The public deserves accurate information, informed leadership, and a board that approaches its responsibilities with professionalism, preparation, and respect to one another.
All right. We can move on to item 5.1, approval of the consent agenda.
Ms. Schmidt, I have a couple I'd like pulled.
Yes.
I'd like to pull 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, and 5.14.
Okay. Are there any other that need to be pulled? Okay. Then if someone would like to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5.3, 5.4, 5.6, and 5.14.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Excuse me. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that passed 5-0. All right. So we can move on to 5.3, approval of personnel action items with Dr. Avila. And Ms. Zimmerman, you asked for it to be pulled.
Yeah, I had to question about the accuracy of the teacher listed from Estrella for ESY.
Madam President, members of the governing board, the ESY teacher, that line is an error and will be corrected
So
and removed.
removed.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing that I had is that, there are two asks for the waive of liquidated damages. And I asked administration for the qualifications, which part of our policy that we passed, this board, that these resignations meet that. And one was provided to me and one wasn't. And I think we have to be fair, that if we have the policy and if the person doesn't meet the qualifications, then, so I'm not sure if you'd like to speak to it.
Sure. Madam President, members of the governing board, both resignations were reviewed with legal for recommendation, and both recommendations given in alignment with policy is an approval to be presented to the board with waivers of the liquidated damages. So this was presented to legal for recommendation.
Okay. So, I just want to say, Mr. Young, it's nothing personal. But what number of the policy does his resignation meet in our policy for the waiver?
Specifically, which
Policy
reason?
4-105.
Which reason?
Yes.
It's both pay increase and the location. So for pay increase, that line specifically, legal said, given the decision was made not to reference administrators, in the resignation session, the policy silent. The safest course of action is to place the request for waiver of liquidated damages on consent agenda, given it aligns with what is allowed for teachers. So that was her recommendation. Therefore, that's what we presented to the board.
Okay. I did my research, and the pay is less because again, everything is public. And I'm personally not comfortable. Like, again, it's nothing personal. I think you're a great person, but we have a policy. And if we bend the policy for certain people and enforce it for others, that to me isn't ethical. And so I'm not comfortable with the waiver unless other information is presented, because I don't know what legal, I don't know how we're following the policy right now.
Madam President, members of the governing board, just to clarify, it was reviewed by the attorney for the recommendation without input from staff. It's specifically number 3, reason 3. And so per district attorney, the recommendation is to waive.
And can you read number 3 for the record, please?
Administration just didn't argue with the attorney, just to clarify.
Okay.
We just accepted it. Number 3 reads, the teacher has been offered a promotional or other opportunity for career advancement with documented increase in pay and benefits.
Respectfully, I disagree. So,
Madam President,
Yes, please.
I don't know if anybody else is still talking about this one, but I have another different question. On these healthcare insurance waiver payments, why are they all different amounts? Can you explain, like, so when they get the waiver payment, this is when people decide not to take our insurance, is this correct? So why, it's not a flat rate?
Can you give me an example? You're just looking down the line in the last row from 400 to 416.
I'm just looking at the amount. Yeah, if you just look on the far right, you see a whole bunch of different amounts. There's like 375, 416, 500.
Right. Step in. I believe that's because, excuse me. Madam President, members of the board, I believe that's because it's pro rata number of days that they are not accepting that insurance. They could have even come in late, or they could make that change later in the year. So it's going to be done on a pro rata basis, and there are 2 payments made, $500 a piece at different times during the year.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. Sorry.
Sure. Go ahead.
Which attorney provided that recommendation? And what information was she given to make the recommendation, the review? Huh? Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I motion to approve 5.3 with the exception of removing Michaela Ferrer as an ESY teacher and removing the waiver of liquidated damages for Robert Young.
President Schmidt,
Yes.
Member Zimmerman, can you please repeat the motion?
I motion to approve 5.3 with the exception of removing Michaela Ferrer as an ESY teacher and removing the waiver of liquidated damages from Robert Young.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? No second? Okay.
Madam President, I got a question.
Do you read? Yes, go
are you-
ahead, please.
Are you saying to deny it, or are you asking to get more information about why it was waived?
I'm asking to deny it. I looked up the salary. It is $10,000 less, and the position is a director and is currently an executive director. It's not personal. It's applying the policy that this board passed.
No, I understand. My only issue is our policy doesn't have.
Madam President, point of order. We cannot have discussion at this point without having a second. You have a motion, you need a second to advance it.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Okay. So reading the answer from legal where we don't address administration, the way it's written out to me sounds like the issue is we need to fix the policy to address administration.
I'm not in a disagreement with that. However, we put liquidated damages in administrator policy, and I feel like it's not a good precedent if we put it in there and then we don't hold to our word.
Madam President,
Yes, please, go ahead.
with this went through legal. I don't feel it's ever been a really good time to challenge what legal is telling the district to do. Legal understands our policy. They write policy for a living. They understand whatever the situation is with Mr. Young. And if this is their recommendation, this is what I'm going to go by. If we have an issue with that, then we can with a policy, then we can adjust that down the road. But right now we have a recommendation from legal. And so to keep ourselves out of trouble, I recommend we follow what legal is telling us.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
So I find it very interesting that in the last board meeting, I questioned about going into executive session, and the same board member that's now questioning legal quickly came to say, did legal recommend this? And as soon as the answer was yes, the discussion was over and we went with it. Now today, the witch hunt changes, and so we're going to hold it up or try to. I find that appalling that a board member would change this decision this quickly, because at the last meeting, we took exactly what legal said when a board member was questioning it. But tonight, we're going to play a different game. So I would offer an amendment that we approve the agenda item as motioned by Ms. Zimmerman, with the exception of her request to withhold liquidated damages for Mr. Robert Young.
Okay. So we have an amendment to the motion. Do we have a second for the amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
President
Okay, we
Schmidt,
can take a vote. Yes, go ahead.
just a moment, please.
Yep.
Board Member Todd, motion to approve personnel action item with the exception of withholding.
Yeah, I'll take the same motion that Ms. Zimmerman gave with the exception, I do not want to withdraw the, with, however you want to word it, to, we're not going to waive, we will waive the liquidated damages for Mr. Robert Young. He will not be responsible for paying those.
Okay. Okay, let's see. And so I have the motion to approve 5.3 with the exception of removing Michaela Farrar as as a ESY teacher and with the exception of waiving the liquidated damages for Mr. Robert Young.
Well, I think the motion, it's already recommended that we waive the liquidated damages, so I don't think we need to change that. We're just not going to
Well,
hold him
just,
to it.
okay, so just removing Michaela Farrar as the EYS teacher?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
So at the end of this, for clarification, we're approving this with the issue with Michaela Farrar, but Mr. Young, as recommended by legal and by staff, will not be responsible for liquidated damages.
thank you. I'll make sure that's in the minutes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that you said that staff didn't make this recommendation. Is that what you said earlier? Legal did, but not staff. I'm just clarifying because Mr. Todd said legal and staff. So I just want to clarify that legal made the recommendation. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have motion by Board Member Michael Todd, second by Chris Kenyon.
Okay. So we can take a vote on the amendment. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
No.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye.
I'm also a no. We'll show that pass 3-2. And now we're taking a vote on 5.3 altogether. Correct. Yes, 5.3. Sorry. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye, and I'd like to explain.
Sorry, I skipped Ms. Zimmerman.
Nay.
All right. I'm also a nay. We'll show that pass 3-2. Mr. Cirincione, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I want to explain the reason I said aye the way it is just because the way it's written. I don't want to jump ahead, but I really think we need to get this as an agenda item to get that fixed. Because right now, the way the policy is written, I couldn't vote against it.
All right. Thank you. We can move on to agenda item 5.4, approval to award cleaning contract for 2026-2027 school year. Mr. Young, this is your agenda item, and Ms. Zimmerman, you were the one who asked for it to be pulled.
Yes, thank you. So on page 5 of the contract, it just says to a attention of Mr. Young, like the payments. And I think since Mr. Young is not going to be with our district any longer, that we just want to make sure. I feel like when change happens, this is when things get lost. And Mr. Haggerty and I just had a conversation prior to the meeting about this concern. And so I just would like to see this changed and just so that, we don't miss payments or, just attention to the right person. And sometimes I feel like I've said in the past that I'm not sure it's helpful to have a person because sometimes things happen. And if we can just, address it to the district office or the
Accounts payable.
something that, somebody will always receive it. Because I noticed that this address isn't the district office address. And I was looking at the contract. It looks like it's the 1910 building.
Where am I on?
Okay.
Wh- wh-
So if we could just maybe, and again, it's your email. I don't know if there's a general, accounts payable email, something that's just more generic that could avoid any problems now or in the future.
Very good. Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we'll make that change before we sign it and get it out to them. We'll just put it to accounts payable, this address with their accounts payable email.
Okay. And then the only other thing is on, so now I'm on page 8 of the document, which is essentially how much it costs. It says that it's a 12-month billing cycle. But then it has like summer break detail, which is a one-time additional fee. So are we paying for 12 months, but we're just breaking it up over 12 months and not necessarily getting the cleaning for 12 months?
Correct.
Okay.
It's broken out. They're here for summer school and summer cleaning during the summer months. But
Okay, so the summer break detail that's an additional cost. Is that in addition to the cleaning they would be doing for summer school or? Okay,
Yes, Madam President, members of the board. Yes, it's the summer deep cleaning that they come in and do all the carpets throughout the district and the floor cleaning, restroom tile, all that kind of thing. But they bring their crews in and do a heavy cleaning throughout the whole district.
okay. So, but the monthly fee would include summer school. They're still cleaning the district office over the summer and things like that.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this agenda item? Okay, then would somebody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve 5.4 with the change on page 5 to reflect a generic email and the district office address.
Second.
All right, Ms. Camerata, did you get that?
President Schmidt, I did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. We have a motion and a second, then we can vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cerancioni.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 5-0. Moving on to agenda 5.6, approval of facility use agreement and fee schedule of fiscal year 2026-2027. This is also Mr. Young and Ms. Zimmerman who had a question about it.
Yes, I, just was curious how we came to the decision to not increase the prices of the facility rentals based on the amount of inflation I feel like that, everybody is experiencing, including the district. I'm just curious how we came to that decision.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we kind of came to that decision there was no one to make the decision. I didn't want to take it on myself to raise the costs. In the past, we've spoken with the superintendents and gone over the, what the recommendation was, cabinet and superintendent in the cabinet meetings. So I just put it through this year as the same, thinking next year when they have the full superintendent and cabinet, they can discuss it and see how they want to handle that.
Okay. So if we could go to page 5 of the document, which outlines the fees. And so the reason that I bring it up is, obviously there's been a lot of talk of the budget and things like that. And so, my concern was, somebody that's renting a classroom, the most that somebody could pay is $20 per hour, which is a minimum of 3, which is 60, which might cover the cleaning. Because if you looked at the cleaning contract that we just issued, as a single classroom cleaning is $25 an hour. So if we rent one for the class 1B and it's $5 per hour, we're not even covering the cost of the cleaning. And so I just want to make sure that, we are protecting the district and our resources. And, I understand that the district doesn't want to make a profit, but I do think we need to cover our costs. And, one of the things that I was reading was, if they have to turn the air conditioning on, let's say, because it's, time we would normally have it on a Saturday or Sunday. $5 is not going to cover that. And it said, somebody who can make that determination, but how is that, I guess, equitable? Who's making that decision? What is the fee associated with it? Those kinds of things.
Madam President, members of the board, when it was originally put together, that was all figured in, but you're exactly right, that it does need to be increased. But when they sign a rental agreement, they have the option of having a custodian there to clean it for them or clean it themselves. And almost every one of them choose to clean it themselves. They don't
Mhm.
want to pay the extra for the custodians.
Sure.
Very, very few times have we had any issues with, leaving a classroom, in a mess or moving stuff. I mean, there's been some things that have been moved and we had to go back and move them around, but it's not a general problem with, things getting in disarray or not cleaned up. Uh, and not saying it never happened. I'm just saying it very, very few with the rentals that we do.
Um, and one of the things I noticed too was that it talks about making sure that there's proper supervision on the playground if they're using the playground, but the playground isn't one of the things that a group can rent. So how do we determine if they're able to use the playground?
Madam President, members of the board, usually like if a church is renting and they have young kids they want to take outside, they just go out and use it. But we tell them they have to have somebody supervise. They can't just let the kid run out there. And I think it said one adult for 20
Mhm.
children out there watching it. So we don't charge them for that. If they want to go outside and use the playground equipment, there's not we don't charge any extra for that.
Yeah. Has there ever been a problem with, people using the playground? Either people getting hurt or
Not from the rentals. People go in after hours without rental agreements and use it, and we can't manage all of that, but we have never had any that I'm aware of, any claims filed that anybody was hurt while they rented the facilities.
Okay.
And we do, they need to provide insurance for those things as
Right.
well, so.
Yeah. And then on page 15 of the document, it talks about the keys. Sorry, I want to make sure that, oh yeah, it is number 4. And so how does the district determine who is given a key?
Okay. Madam President, members of the board, we usually a key will be given to, like the city of Buckeye uses the summer rec programs at a couple of our schools.
Mm.
And, if somebody's responsible like that, we give it to them. If there's a church that uses it every Sunday and they have the long-term rental, we give them a key so they can get in. If I went in, I said, hey, I want to rent the Liberty Gym for one night, I want to get a key, somebody would have to open it for me. But just the organized groups that we know are stable, going to be there, we will sign a key out to them.
Okay. Personally, I think there needs to be some clarification about how keys, because I feel like giving a key to somebody is in my mind a really big deal. And personally, I'd really like to see us evaluate if these fees are appropriate at this point. So, I'd like to see us table this at least to get the new superintendent in place. And I don't know if there's something where we can make a motion to continue the previous one till July 14th or something like that, or,
So you make a new one, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
but-
because there are people currently renting.
sure, of course.
Madam President.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm for, if when this new superintendent starts and she's working on getting her cabinet in here and we want to have this discussion about these fees, I'm all for us having that discussion. However, I don't want to hold this up right now. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the facility use agreement and fee schedule for fiscal year 26-27.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we can take a vote.
Madam President?
Yep, sorry, go ahead, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, that's okay. I didn't have my microphone on. So I understand what Board Member Kenyon is discussing here, but I actually do think that Ms. Zimmerman's on the right path. If we were to continue with what we have until July 14th, once we publish this, it's really hard, and I would hate to go a whole year. We've all sat here and basically agreed that these prices aren't accurate. So to approve it and then bring it back creates an extra layer. I think we'd be better to table this, to Ms. Zimmerman's point, but not table it, but perhaps the board would consider amended motion that we would continue with the current fees until the board meeting on, what is our next one? Did we say it's the 14th?
July 14th.
Till July 14th, and at that point, we can approve a full facility use agreement. It's going to be a lot of work on staff to do this now, and then no doubt it's coming back to us. So I think it'd be easier for them if we do this at one time. And the extra 2 weeks, roughly well, I guess it's a little more than 2 weeks, a month, but how many rentals do we have right now? Do we have a lot going on?
Not a lot going on right now.
So if we hold off, and maybe finance could weigh in on this too, but if we kept our current fees for a month until the next meeting, and then we brought back, and then we could approve new, wouldn't that be easier than doing it twice?
I think it's going to have the same effect either way. So as far as the finance is concerned, we're going to have to go through the same review process. You can adopt and amend, or you can just go ahead and postpone because it'll have the same impact. So it's at the pleasure of the board.
I think it would just be cleaner instead of adopting it and then going back and changing it, which kind of makes it look like we've made a mistake. We just hold this off until the next meeting, continue with what we have. I do like Ms. Zimmerman's suggestion. I think that's what you were suggesting, right? Did I understand that?
Yes, it was.
I think Madam President, members of the board, you could bring it in July and approve it and then make it effective August 1st or something like that. That way you got past the summer rentals
Right.
that are already in place and just.
That's true.
And I think, did somebody mention we might have another meeting between now and July 14th? Or there is another special meeting that may be?
Yes,
So-
yes, June 22nd,
Right.
I
so-
believe. It'll be up later, but yeah.
Okay. If staff can get it by then, that would be even better. That would be really good. But that's a short compressed timeline. And I don't know what the work is involved in getting this cleaned up with new pricing. But I think that would be a better idea. So,
Mhm.
I don't know, Ms. Zimmerman, if you want to make an amendment.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. I think an interesting point was brought up that we already have like summer rentals in place. Like I assume you mean for the city of Buckeye.
Correct.
I assume that they're already understanding of the current pricing. And I do think it's a lot to ask of staff to, figure it out in essentially 14 days, right? That's what we're saying, that the superintendent will be acting as the superintendent. So, yeah, I would like to see us come back to this. I think $5 a classroom is outdated, I guess maybe is the right word. So
So do you want to offer an amendment?
Okay,
We currently have a motion and a second, right?
thank you. I was just about to ask the same thing. I believe we currently have a motion to approve by Mr. Kenyon and a second by Mr. Cirincione. So we can make an amendment or we can vote on that motion. If someone wants to amend, or we'll take the vote.
I propose an amendment to table item 5.6 till the July 14th meeting.
I think if we just table it, our current fee runs out, so we can't,
Oh, that's
we're
right,
paralyzed.
sorry.
You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to carry on the current one
Yeah,
and
Uh,
then come back
Okay.
the
So
next meeting.
the amended motion will read approve 5.6, or no, to table, sorry, Ms. Camerata.
That's okay.
I had to remember what I said. To table 5.6 and bring it back to the July 14th meeting while continuing the current facility use handbook until a new handbook is adopted by the board.
At the next general meeting, right? Is that when you want the handbook?
Well, I said we're bringing it back at the next meeting in the first part of the motion.
Okay, President Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, so I have the motion to table 5.6 and bring back to the July 14 meeting while continuing the current facility use handbook fees until a new handbook is adopted by the board.
The amended motion,
Mhm.
amendment.
Okay. We have an amendment. Do we have a second for the amendment?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So we can take a vote on the amendment. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye, and I'd like to explain my vote.
okay. Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cerancioni,
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that that passed. Mr. Kenyon, would you like to explain now or after the second vote?
I could explain now, that's fine.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, the reason why I pushed initially for the original motion to just pass this with the understanding that, you know, we can really do a deep dive into this is knowing this board and knowing all the transition that's happening in the district office, it's going to be, as board member Todd said, it's going to be a lot of work for them to come with the good numbers that we would be looking for. I'm okay with the amendment because it basically is saying we can continue these current contracts we have until we're able to have some resolutions. However, I still, I mean, I hope we can get it done by July 14th, but if we're going to do something right, it's best that it's not rushed and a lot of time is spent on it. So that's just my comment.
All right, thank you. Now we will vote on 5.6, the original. So, Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cerancioni.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that that passed 5-0. All right. Moving on to agenda item 5.14, approval ratification of expense vouchers 2641, 2642, 2643, 2644, 2645, 2646, 2647, 2648 in the amount of $4,091,218.25. Ms. Zimmerman, you had a question or comment on this one?
Yes, thank you. Could we open voucher 2641, please, and go to page 11 of the document? So my first question is about the vendor Rogers Rewards. It says human resource consulting services for $5,412. 500 of it seems to be from the previous fiscal year, which I thought had to be approved in a separate agenda item. But so this year's is almost $5,000. Can you speak to what services were rendered for this particular vendor?
Finding the on button is always the toughest part. Madam President, members of the board, when I asked about this, it is work that was done for work agreements, looking at contracts and general technical advice to the human resources staff.
Okay. And in the questions and answers that were provided to the board, it said that this $4,912 was for 32.75 hours of work. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there's just been a lot of conversation with the board about consultants and different things. And just for transparency purposes, this person was paid $153 an hour. So for 32 hours worth of work. On page 12 of this same voucher, there is a PO for Specialized Education of Arizona, also known as Sierra Schools, for $760,843. And if we could just get some clarity, because this says that it was paid on April 9th, but I don't know that that is an accurate statement. So if we could just get some clarity about this particular vendor.
Okay, green light. Okay, Madam President, members of the board, the original check was actually canceled and it is now being reissued under this. So there was some negotiation back and forth, and this is the final settlement on this contract.
This number or a different number that's going to come to us again?
647,000. This will close out the contract for the current year.
Okay, so will it come to us in a different PO, or excuse me, a different voucher, the actual number that we're paying, or no? Because
I'm sorry. There will be another voucher that will spell that out. Yes.
okay,
So this is going to generate a check, 647,000, and it's underspending the encumbrance. So there will be a little money put back into the budget as a result of this.
okay, thank you. If we could go to voucher 2642, page 11. And the vendor that I'm looking at is New Solutions, which is a behavior coach. Or New Direction Solutions. I apologize. And Mr. Haggerty, I this was discussed at a previous meeting, and so I apologize, but we voted last spring to take the behavior coach out of different funds. I believe it was indirect funds. Now, of course, I didn't. I'd have to go back on my old meeting notes, but not for it to come out of M&O.
Madam President, members of the board, you're saying it was voted on, the funding code was voted on?
On how we were paying for it last year when we had to cut like $3 million from the budget.
Okay.
So when Miss Williams was here, like a couple months prior, this came up again, like previously, that it was out of M&O and that the board had made that distinction. So
Okay, you're talking about 2642? I'm showing that as stars.
yes, I'm talking about New Direction Solutions, which is on page 11. And it says contracted services behavior coach.
I need to take a look at the screen.
Okay.
I didn't have an opportunity to look at this one. The voucher that we researched was directly related to the STARS program. So on this one specifically, I can tell you if the board took an action on that, and we'll look that up and we can change the coding. That will not be a problem.
Okay, thank you so much. And that's all I have for this agenda item. All right, I need to make a motion, unless somebody else. Okay. I make a motion to approve 5.14.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We can take the vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Sarantoni.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We'll show that 5.14 passed 5-0. Moving on to general business. Item 6.1, discussion consideration to approve the fiscal year 2026-2027 proposed annual school district expenditure budget. Mr. Hegarty.
Yes. Madam President, members of the board, fellow employees, and honored guests. We got a preview of this at a prior board meeting, and this is a budget that's been put together on preliminary forms issued by the Auditor General, as the state has not yet finished its budgeting process. So we are going to have some changes we know going forward, but what we know at a point in time is what's being presented to you tonight. And okay, am I clicking wrong? Oh, one more on button. Okay. Okay, so this is the proposed budget, and tonight we're bringing this to you for your approval. We follow this up with an adopted budget prior to July 15th, but this has to be done prior to July 5th. Obviously, we're meeting that requirement by bringing this to you tonight. We will post this on the ADE website and also on a link from our website, and then we will adopt at the July 14th meeting. We are required to hold a public meeting for the budget adoption, and we will post that on the ADE website also 10 days prior to the 15th. And included in this is also an adjacent ways. I'll talk to you about that because that's a special hearing also. So there'll be 2 hearings. Now, what has changed? Again, the preliminary that we looked at the last board meeting, some of these numbers have changed slightly, again, based upon updated information from ADE. But the 2% increase that's going to go into the base funding will generate about $632,000. The override will also have we call it a whipsaw effect, but add on to that because we have a 10% override that will also increase our budget capacity. And I plugged in an estimate 45 new students coming in, but that's an ADM weighted growth of 58. So that'll generate about a little over $300,000. We still are planning on losing this money that was considered one-time money in the 26 budget. So you can see the numbers up there. That is unchanged from the last meeting. Now, again, we know that the budget process is still continuing between the legislature and the governor, and we know that something's going to happen. We just don't know what that is, so that is not plugged in here. These are, again, our preliminary forms. Once we get the final forms from the ADE, or from the Auditor General, excuse me, we will look to do a revised budget on the new forms, and that's going to be by September 15th. So in the capital budget, we did go down, and the single biggest issue there has to do with our carry forward. We did spend a chunk of that in the current year, but also on your agenda tonight is a revised annual financial report for fiscal year 24, which will add some of the money back, so almost $124,000 back into the capital budget. Also, we are going to be looking at reallocating our interest in the fiscal years 25 and 26. I think we'll see some money coming forward from that as a result. The other thing to note is that the additional assistance is done on an unweighted ADM. Our weighted ADM has extra in there for the special ed. Unweighted, we actually had a very, very slight decrease in the unweighted from the current year. Now, I put everything on a table here so you can compare it to where we finished up the 26 year. All those changes I just spoke to are showing in here, and the delta between each of them. Again, these numbers are going to change based upon what the final negotiation is, and the state continues to balance its own ADM numbers because you have kids that are different places throughout the year. And the state has to allocate those among the different districts and entities. So they always are changing their ADM numbers, and we always see those changing. Not great big numbers, but we do see changes as a result. And we'll bring those to you when that happens also on an update. Now, the Classroom Site Fund, this is always a really good story for us. It is funded by a 0.6% sales tax increase and money from the State Land Trust. That increased by, excuse me, from 842 to 883, and it will increase our base funding by 202,000. So the total new revenue coming into this fund is almost $4.4 million for next year. We're also going to be able to add in $130,000, almost 131 of interest. It's actually going to go up a little bit because that's point in time. We expect to earn a little bit more interest in this before the year closes out. Now, as a reminder, our teacher salary increase for next year is being paid out of this fund. Now, we talked about the adjacent ways, and when we do adjacent ways, we should have a truth and taxation hearing as a result. Now, adjacent ways, I'm going to go ahead and read this out loud. It's a primary level levy that the governing board can approve. It's used for offsite utilities, fire lanes, safe ingress and egress. It's also subject to the truth and taxation requirements, which means we have to advertise this and have a separate public hearing on it. This year, the district did levy $2 million for the 25-26 year. We're also planning to do the same for next year, so that will be level. So we do have to publish that notice at least 10 days before the public hearing. So it's there's actually two pieces of that, no later than 10 days, but no earlier than 20 days. But because our tax base is increasing, the tax rate, even though we're getting the same number of dollars, is going to go down. So $2 million last year generated the, in the 25-26, I got to be careful when I say prior year, because that's where we live today, is 3982. It's going to drop because we have more properties that have been put onto our tax base. So that tax is now spread out over a bigger base, and we're going to see a decrease in the actual rate. So we do an estimate of the tax rate from year to year. These numbers, I guarantee you, are going to change, except for the first one. The qualifying tax rate is a base number that is applied across the entire state. But these other numbers vary based upon the budget. For example, the transportation number, you can see a big drop there. We currently have a 15,915 to restate some of our prior year transportation numbers. So based on what we know today, that is the calculation I come up with, but I can pretty much guarantee you that's going to change before we get our final numbers in, and we'll be setting those tax rates in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then the adjacent ways, again, you see that dropping. And then this tax resolutions, there are things that go back and forth. This is just a wild guess. I just used the same number as before because we don't know what the county's going to use for people that are not paying their taxes on time, and some of those that are trying to keep their properties by paying back taxes. Those all come through these numbers right here. So right now these are estimates, but like I said, I guarantee these numbers are going to change. But at this point in time, it looks like we're going to see a pretty nice decrease overall in the rate. Now, for individuals, it's going to look a little different because if somebody's house value goes up substantially, then their rate will generate more taxes, if that makes sense. But if your property value stays the same, you will see a decrease. So property values that are added, properties that are added to the tax rolls, again, spreads that over a bigger base. So overall, everybody feels a little less at the pinch. The secondary tax rate, this is for things that our voters approve. So our bonds and our overrides. And again, you'll see some very similar trend here. Now the bonds, our debt service is actually projected to drop a little bit. Again, we have to wait for the county to tell us what they expect to have folks that may not be paying their bills in a timely fashion. That'll affect this rate. And then the override. But again, because our property values went up, we should expect a decrease in the rate itself. And that's what we're projecting here. But again, that number will change when we get our final numbers. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, questions from the board?
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to make a administrative note on your slide for the classroom site funds. It said 0.6. On our slides that are put out, it says 0.06.
I didn't get my corrected slide into your deck.
So that's the corrected.
It's 0.6%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So 0.006 when you buy something. Yeah.
Ms.
Any
Schmidt,
other questions for Mr. Hegarty?
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Shocker to no one on the board, but Mr. Haggerty doesn't know me very well, but I have many. If we go to the slide where the, kind of changes from the budget, one of the beginning slides, notable changes for the 27 budget.
Okay.
What sticks out to me is that our budget, if we take out the weighted ADM, because I said before that that number makes me nervous. We've had this discussion. And especially looking at how much we grew this year, which was 13, right? And so now we're saying we're going to grow more, which maybe we will, maybe we won't, but we are essentially, when we put that number into the budget, we're counting on that money. And I know we've talked about maybe we'll get some of this other additional assistance and, that'll kind of balance out. I do feel better that you said that we're going to have to do a revised one by September 15th. And so if, we can have that discussion again, if we, we get our 10-day 10-day drop and we're really not feeling like we're getting there. But, we're increasing our budget by $700,000, just from inflation numbers from last year. And we're still making that transfer from DAA to M&O. And so it just still is a point for me that this board and the district administration, in my mind, need to figure out how to stop making that transfer, because that money for capital is so important, especially in some of our aging schools. And the fact that we essentially are spending $700,000 more this year, and we still had than this for fiscal year 27, we're spending $700,000 more than we did this year, and we still have to make the transfer. So we've made the transfer now. I think this is our third year. So that is a concern for me personally. If we can go to the next two, not the next, oh yeah, it is the next slide for the capital. Why, when you did the budget for next year and, we are spending a significant amount of our carry forward, how did you calculate what we need to spend on capital, that need to spend some of that carry forward was needed?
On the budget, the current year budget is just following the same spending pattern at this point in time.
Okay.
And I'm hoping to, by the process tonight, again, your next agenda item to approve the annual financial report, we'll pick up 123,000 in capital. I expect similar numbers in 25 and 26, and it's just a matter of how we recognize and allocate revenues from the state that drives interest, and the interest cannot be spent out of M&O. So we earn interest in M&O, we can do nothing with it. But if we earn it in capital, it rolls over into the subsequent year as budget capacity. So it's important that that we allocate our revenues appropriately. We front load on the capital budget, and then it drives more interest in there that we can carry over and create capacity. So overall, I think through this process, we're going to get between $200,000 and $300,000 back into capital as a result of that.
Okay. So if we could open the actual budget forms now, please, and if we could go to page 2, which is the M&O. I appreciate that we can see the decrease in the reduction of the 4 FTEs that we made, because again, I know you weren't here, but before this was kind of like they just had a placeholder number, and we cut positions last year and we couldn't see it reflected. So I feel like it's helpful transparently for us and for the public to see we made a reduction of 4 FTEs and it's reflective in our budget. I asked for the SPED staffing, I don't know how many months ago, but we still have not received it. And I see that it's stagnant here, but based on some information that parents have given me, there seems to be an increase in classrooms. So I'd really like the board to be able to see the specifics to make sure, because if we are increasing our weighted ADM, which is based on special education students. If those classrooms are needed, that's fine, but it needs to be reflective in the budget, right? We need to account for the money. And then on page 4,
Capital.
which is classroom site fund, we're just with the, kind of large increase. This is because we're paying those salary increases out of this fund, correct? Okay.
Yes.
And then on page 5, when we go to capital, sorry, I'm looking at the, okay, actually, can we go to page 6? So, the school facilities, the new school facilities, the projected number for the budget year, fiscal year 27 is 6.5. Is maybe this is a question for Mr. Young. Is that money essentially money we'd get for those grants that you apply for and things like that? Is that what that money, because we're not really doing any new school building, is that what that money would equate from?
Madam President, members of the board, yes, some of that is the building renewal grant money,
That's the word.
and some of it is the new school is carried over. We're still finalizing the new school, so there's some budget money in there that we got to finish. I'm working with the SFB now, trying to finish that up before I go, so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then on page 7, so I noticed that Title I funding is going down about $200,000. Do we know why it's going down?
Yes, that's the, there was a grant, I think it's Fund 113, if I remember correctly. Project Momentum.
Yeah.
Those are all rolled into this. So it says Title I, but everything from Fund 100 to 130 is rolled into this account.
Oh, okay.
So that's why, yeah, it's not detailed on this budget, but we do keep track of them by fund number. But for purposes of reporting here on the budget itself, they're all rolled together. So that is the decrease. It is the Project Momentum. And there was a small decrease, I believe around 7,000 or 8,000 right now that we're seeing in the other funds that roll into this account.
Okay, thank you. And then my last kind of comment is for page 14. And this talks about the carry forward, the planned carry forward. And, essentially we're carrying forward about $400,000 less than we did last year. And again, this is kind of for the future and, future administration, but the board voted on October 27th of 2025 to build a carry forward of $2 million by the end of fiscal year 28. And so my concern is we're not working towards that. And so I just think, it's something, if the board has changed its priorities, then we should revisit that, because that was the direction that we voted on. So.
Yeah. Madam President and members of the board, I'd like to respond to that. I think that you need to have a strategic session talking about where to have your carry forward monies. Because as I mentioned before, if you're carrying a lot of money forward in M&O, you're earning interest on it that you cannot spend. You're creating dead cash.
Okay.
You may want to look at other options on where you carry that money forward and actually bleed down the general fund a little bit and earn that interest in funds that will give you more capacity. So I think it's a strategic move you can make. You get the same carryover, but it's where you carry it over that makes the difference. So I think that should be part of the thought process as you plan those things going forward. And I know Mrs. Purcell is very aware of those. So that's just something to consider.
I really appreciate you adding that for us. Thank you so much. And that's all I have.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
Madam President, I did have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Along the lines of Ms. Zimmerman's question about the carry forward, I'm trying to figure out exactly, since the board did pass the resolution for the carry forward, what are we looking at the end of this next year? How does that put us on track for what the board originally voted to do for a carryover by end of 2028?
Are you talking about the general fund?
I think
M&O?
that's, I
Is that
think
the-
that's where it is right now, right?
That's where some carry forward is.
Right. So what's the total carry forward for the district this year in all funds?
All funds. Ooh, if you look at on this report, you're going to see your like a classroom site fund is going to have a major amount of carry forward, and that's really where your biggest reserve is sitting. And you do get to keep that interest and spend it, so that does create capacity. But as far as the board resolution is concerned, I wasn't aware of that when I built this. We could always build it and move those expenses around. I just don't think strategically it's the best way to manage the overall, because you're basically creating dead cash that you cannot spend. So I think strategically we need to look at that again and revisit that with the board, but I was not aware there was a $2 million goal. So we can always build it that way. I would not advise that to be the direction.
So then I think we need to have an action item soon, an agenda item in action for the board to discuss that further, because we currently have to work towards that. I don't know that we can approve this with the resolution that the board took previously, because this is not, I don't know that this is working towards that resolution. Because I don't know how much money we're carrying. I'm still trying to figure that out. I mean, school finance reports there's always strange stuff in them, but I think for the record, it's important so there's no confusion exactly what we're looking at.
Well, what I would offer is that this budget is setting limits. We are taking the money that we know at a point in time, given where the state is, and we're establishing limits. This can be modified every day if you wished. But at the same time, I think it does set a direction. And so I'm not going to disagree with you at all that we need to look at this. But I think it needs to be done strategically, and approving this would not be in any violation of a resolution you already made, because you've set it up for 28. But I think it can be part of the strategic plan moving forward as how you want to see these funds and where can they be best carried forward to better create more capacity.
I understand that, but my concern is I don't want to leave this all on 28 and then say, congratulations, board of 2028, come up with $2 million. We've got to be moving. We have to be moving in that direction now because of that resolution.
Okay.
This district for far too often, all the way back to COVID money when we had reading interventionists, it was always, let's cash our commission. Let's go buy the boat before we get the commission check. When we hired a bunch of reading interventionists, I wasn't opposed to hiring them, but under grant dollars, it was very dangerous because they were successful. They did work. The grant ran out, and then we were left with this gift of bring this into the general, start paying them. So I think we need to have a clear understanding, and that's what I'm trying to express here is I don't have a clear understanding of where we're headed towards for carryover based off of our resolution that the board passed of $2 million by 2028, which is right around the corner, unfortunately, but it is truly as fast as years move these days. I think it's important that everybody have an understanding of where we're at. And so it's just a simple question of how much carryover are we getting? You can tell me we're getting $1 out of this fund and $3 out of this fund and $200,000 out of this fund. I don't care. I'm just looking for a general, where are we at right now with carryover of all funds? Because you can put money in a lot of different buckets.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned about that in the county superintendent's finance training that she's done. So I'm just a little unclear, and I want to make sure for the record that we know exactly what we have right now in this proposal for carryover.
Yes. And if I could offer that the numbers would shift between funds, but it will not change your carryover. What will change your carryover is how we close out this year. We're in the process of closing purchase orders right now. It's not unusual at the end of a year that there are purchase orders that are saying, hey, we may expect to, I'll just use as an example, a bus needs to be fixed twice this year. Well, if it has to get fixed 5 times, we've got to move budget around for that. But if it only gets fixed 1 time, we have money that falls through to the bottom line. So we will see shifting on the spending based upon those purchase orders that are getting closed right now. And then we go into a 60-day encumbrance cycle, July and August. So those things will be moving. but the overall dollars themselves are just going to be shifted between funds. So what you see up here is what we're projecting for a point in time. If you want to see it only in the,
I just want a dollar number. Just tell me a dollar number of what you think right now is carryover. Simple. Just a dollar number. I don't need any more explanation. I want to see a total dollar of carryover. That's all I'm asking for.
out of M&O.
Total, wherever we've got it, whatever. If you've got
Okay.
4 buckets you're pulling it out of, tell me 4 buckets. This much out of this one out of this one. Currently, I understand it
Well-
could change a little bit, but because of, to your point, you're gonna have purchase orders, you're gonna have some things happen, but you gotta have a general idea. So that's all I need is a number of, we have a total number of X dollars divided by 4 different accounts, 2 accounts, 1 account, whatever it is, and that's how we come up with that number.
Well, I can give it to you by fund right now, point in time, based on what we know. And then once those once all the purchase orders are closed, that's when we do our final accounting for everything, and we'll update it for there. But I can give it to you by fund where we are right now, and that's actually in this budget on this sheet that we're looking at right now.
I understand. It's just an eye chart, so I'm just asking so we're all on the same page. Again, simple question. What are the dollar amounts?
Okay. I will take this information and put it into a different format, so it's by fund.
Okay, so we don't have it. You don't have it currently tonight that you can tell us a number.
It's right there,
So,
but it's summarized. So do I memorize, 50 funds? I did not. But what I can do is provide that to you because they roll up into these.
okay.
These are summarized by special revenue funds. There's a whole bunch of funds that go into special revenue. So I can certainly provide that to you. I have no problem because I track those, but I just don't have it on my fingertips right now. So we can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to respond a little bit because, originally the carry forward was my agenda item, like when it got passed in October. And, my concern is that we had not, the past boards had not set up the district for kind of like future concerns, future problems, rainy day, right? But I didn't have any understanding of, putting it in different funds and earning interest in all of those things. And so, and I realize that you don't have all of this, as we had talked about before, you don't have all this background information that makes it really hard, right? The transition in the district office is very challenging right now. And so I am comfortable moving forward with, the reason that I state some things that I was concerned about is so that the future district administration can hear those things and we can address them as we move forward. As I said, the ADM makes me nervous. I have been upfront about that from the beginning. And, I think maybe we do need to have a conversation about what does carry forward actually mean and how we manage it. But I do think we need to have a budget for the district. But as you said, we're going to redo this by September 15th. So that gives our new CFO and our new superintendent some time to kind of take this on. And then we can, have the discussion with people that are going to be in these positions. So thank you.
Mr. Haggerty, could I get a clarification from you, or just, point us in the right direction? You said that the Classroom Site Fund has quite a bit of carry forward money. Exactly how much is in the Classroom Site Fund?
The Classroom Site Fund, I'm going to stretch my brain a little bit. I don't recall. It is substantial. It's up around 5 million, if I remember correctly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from board members? Or would anybody like to make a motion at this time?
I make a motion to approve I make a motion to approve the fiscal year 26-27 proposed annual school district expenditure budget.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We can show that that passed 5-0. Moving on to agenda item 6.2, discussion consideration to approve revised FY 2023-2024 annual financial report. Mr. Hegarty, this is you again, please.
This sounds like the whole thing is on finance tonight. I did go back and do some forensic accounting work and looked at everything that we had in the 23-24 fiscal year and went through a process of reallocating the interest based upon how we post revenues throughout the year. By going through that process, I was able to reallocate $92,497 out of M&O, which would be dead cash, into capital, which can now be carried forward as budget capacity. So again, this is something that's available to us, and I filed what's called a 15915 to restate the prior year, and that's why this is on the agenda for reapproval. But in this process, I also started looking at other monies that came back to us in different formats, and one of them was there was a reimbursement in the capital fund for an expenditure that happened in that current year, and so it was coded into M&O as a refund and also as a prior year against a prior year expenditure, but it wasn't. So this is saying, hey, we got the money in the same year we spent it. We can now put that back into our capacity for capital and carry it forward. So that's where these two numbers together will give us 123,000. We're going to be able to increase our capital moving forward. And then the third item was the characterization of a refund we received from the insurance, that we moved it into a fund that gives us more flexibility. It's less restrictive and actually more proper than the one it was placed in. It was not a reimbursement of expenditures. It was actually a refund of premium, which gives us more flexibility in the fund that we're going to be putting it into. And I've run this by our auditors. I've run it by ADE Finance, and I've got a consensus on this. Do I have another slide? Yep. So,
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Ms. Schmidt.
Go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Haggerty, for this work, for going back and essentially kind of finding, as you call, dead cash for the district. So I'm sure this took a considerable amount of work. So just thank you for the work that you've done in identifying this issue.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the revised fiscal year 23-24 annual financial report as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We can take a vote. Mr. Todd?
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We will show that passed 5-0. Agenda item 6.3, discussion consideration of permanent guest teachers. This is Dr. Avila and Mr. Haggerty. I don't know who's presenting
What was that?
info.
Oh, the permanent guest teachers.
Yes.
Yes, this is an item we came up with back during the COVID dollars that were coming in. Instead of just going with pure subs, we got permanent subs they could fill in as needed. So now that the money has gone away for that, filling those slots as needed instead of with permanent positions is what this is doing. So it just basically takes out the permanent positions. We're not going to be paying benefits and the higher rates for the retirement and all that. And we will be utilizing ESI or subs on an as needed basis instead of a permanent position. Because if there are positions, or excuse me, if there are classrooms that are already covered, that leaves us with people that really, they can do some things, but it's not for the purpose intended. So this is just to correct that situation.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Madam President,
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Todd.
have we looked at a report of the usage of our permanent subs? I know there's always been some confusion about if they're assigned to a single school or if they can be moved around. But it seems like throughout the year, we still hear all the time that we are down a teacher. So in the past, we've never been able to fill all the substitute positions. And it seems like the permanent subs, although they are a little more costly because we're paying the benefits and so forth, what's the utilization of them? And then carrying on with that, what kind of assurances do we have from ESI that they're actually going to be able to provide the number of subs that we need?
Madam President, members of the governing board, Board Member Todd, for some information, we don't have tracking for the permanent guest subs. There was one assigned per site. They didn't track when they were used, but they were utilized every day. If there wasn't a sub or a teacher out, they were utilized in other ways. So it could be, support in a different classroom, for example. In reviewing ESI, the fill rate was 66%. More than 3,600 subs were needed this year. Approximately 2,500 were filled, so we didn't have a high fill rate, but there are 145 subs registered for Liberty. Actively, we had 110 subs work all year. So those 110 have registered for next school year. The difference, Board Member Todd, is what you pointed out. If we use ESI, we do not pay for all of the benefits, including ASRS. We can still have subs assigned by a site, but they just wouldn't report every day. It would be on call. There is a new program, a few new programs. We can have a daily report for some of the schools who have a higher need, and not just every school, but for the permanent guest sub, there was one per site with how the
Right.
system was set up.
So I'm confused. Last year, all we heard from the principals how we had to protect those positions. We had to keep them. We had to keep them. And now we're saying we have no utilization report of how those teachers, how that staff was used. I would think the principals would all be standing here with a good report to say I used my permanent sub X amount of days in a classroom. There were so many days that we were full and we didn't need the permanent sub, so we moved her to another campus, him or her, whichever that is, or there was just nothing to do that day. So they went in and helped with some reading intervention or whatever the case. But how can we have that number of employees from each campus? Those are at the site level position. Those site level managers, i.e. principals, should have that report and should be able to tell you what everybody on their campus has done all year.
I did ask for this information when we were talking about the budget, and we were given this information in a board update or in a question and answer. I can't remember which one, but we were given this information. And so as to your point, there are a lot of principals that want this, right? I mean, I don't think there's any disagreement in that, but as you stated a few minutes ago, when we hire things that are grant funded, we cannot continue them when we don't have the grant money. And so this is the prime example of that. These were originally created with ESSER funds, and we have not had ESSER funds for quite some time. Now, these permanent subs could certainly register with ESI, and the school office managers, I'm sure, have them on speed dial and can text them. But I think when we have, not to mention just the benefits and retirement, but let's say the first 2 weeks of school, probably people are not out. The last week of school, people are likely not out. There are other times, testing throughout the year, blackout days, and we're having people. I think that it's important that, again, as you stated, when something's grant funded, we can't keep doing it when we don't have the funds. And clearly the budget capacity. Now, we can try it this year. And as you stated, we could task, the new superintendent, create a process for this to be tracked in a more meticulous way and then revisit it if we really feel like it's a large issue. But to me, the issue is it was grant funded and now it's not.
Well, that would be true with the reading interventionist, so those would be another several positions we could just, if we whack this, we could whack those using that
We already
analogy.
did that last year. We already removed the
Still have some.
additional reading interventionists
But-
from ESSER funds. We already did that.
It's still carried over. There was still money from there. But my point to this is we need these positions. If you only have a 66% fill rate from ESI, and now you add basically another 8, that's another potential 8 vacancies a day. So our fill rate could go lower. I'm trying to fill the classroom with qualified staff. So I'm not advocating one way or the other here. I'm trying to get some questions answered.
Madam President, members of the governing board, just to clarify, district is not saying the positions are not needed. Every principal would say we need the position, yes. As well, with regards to the reporting, the principals have their own systems. We just don't have, like ESI, a dashboard necessarily that we could just log in and get everyone's information simultaneously all at once, like we can with ESI. The information presented to the board before came from ESI. Those were reports that we pulled from ESI and shared with the board. We just don't have a similar system. So is there reporting? Each principal has their own system. We just don't have a district dashboard, and the position is needed at the sites. We're just bringing this forward because it is something that was grant funded, and we're bringing it to board members for approval, should you wish to continue.
So if each principal is tracking this, we could table this until the next meeting. You could bring a report from each principal that could show how they utilize their permanent sub each day. This person was in this classroom, they were in this classroom the next day, they were over here. We should be able to get the whole year report and see it. And then we could better understand what the utilization, because if we're going to essentially drop 8 more teacher vacancies, because if we eliminate these positions, we're going to lose, we have eight additional substitute teachers we need to fill every day. ESI is already only batting at 66%. That means we have more vacancies of substitute teachers. So I would like to see the true utilization. And I remember seeing the ESI, but I did not recall, and I'm glad you pointed this out. We have the utilization from ESI. We don't have the utilization from our staff. That's what we need to make a better decision on this.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes.
For me, this comes down to the fact that it's ESSER funds. And in the scheme of looking at the budget, we can't keep paying with funds we're no longer receiving. I'm not saying we don't need these teachers. These are people. It's not just a title. These are people, and it's hard. But we're not getting funded anymore for these positions. That's what it comes down to me.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead.
For years, I've been a strong proponent of this position and doing what we can to keep these. I've heard it from, as Board Member Todd said, the principals utilize this position no matter if they need them in a classroom or to do something else. And everything I've heard is these positions, the people in these positions are like nonstop. They are always doing something. They're just not sitting back. Which means they're always supporting our children. With ESI having a 66% fill rate, that's concerning. Prior to this permanent guest teacher position opening up, we all heard of the horror stories of, when a teacher didn't show up to a classroom and the struggle to fill those, and then splitting rooms and sending this room. It was just a mess. When you have somebody dedicated to jumping in and filling in, it really does help. And, Ms. Zimmerman was celebrating a lot of our successes for this last year. Well, I directly correlate some of those successes to these permanent guest teachers being there to support these kids when there's times. I'm not disagreeing that it's an issue that we're not getting funded for this anymore. The question I have, and I would go along with what Board Member Todd was saying, if we could table this and get a little more information, if our principals, if our staff can give us some information of how valuable they think these positions are. And then as a board, we can have the discussion, do we want to keep this position and then fund it with a different fund? Do we need all 8? Do we only need 4? And just kind of have that discussion rather than just eliminating it. Because I do think it's such a valuable position. It's a valuable resource for our staff and for our children. So I would be in favor in tabling this until we can get more information.
I'll make the motion to table this until we have more information from staff.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We can take a vote on tabling item 6.3. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Nay.
Mr. Cirincione.
Nay.
I'm also a nay. So the nays pass nays 3, ayes 2.
I make a motion to eliminate the permanent guest teacher program for fiscal year 26-27.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We can vote on that. Mr. Todd,
Nay.
Mr. Kenyon,
Nay.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. I will show that pass 3-2. Moving on to agenda item 6.4, discussion consideration to reclassify Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services to Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Services. Dr. Avila and Mr. Hegarty are attached again. So who will speak to this?
Madam President, members of the governing board, we have a recommendation to reclassify the current Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources position to Executive Director of Human Resources based on role responsibilities, alignment with the district's organizational structure, and responsible stewardship of district resources. This change as well creates greater organizational clarity and consistency, and the adjustment also provides a cost savings opportunity for the district.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from board members?
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
what is the cost savings of the reclassification of the position?
Madam President, members of the governing board, the difference between an assistant superintendent and an executive director, depending on which step, ranges anywhere from $26,839.35 to $27,914.63.
If we were to classify that position as a director instead of executive director, what would that save us?
The difference would be another 11,000. Thank you. $35,171 for step 1. Step A. Step E would be 39,323,000.
Ms. Schmidt.
Yes, please.
I am in support of reclassifying it to an executive director as I was last spring when I originally brought this idea up. Um, and, you know, the reason that I originally brought it up is because when we created the executive director of operations, we basically removed all the supervisory role from this position of other departments. And so, to be honest with you, Mr. Todd, I asked about whether this should be a director position or an executive director position. And the answer that I was given was that, HR is an extremely important position, and has a lot of legal um, complexities to it. And we want to make sure that we find the appropriate person and the experience, and that at this time it was recommended that we continue it as an executive director versus a director. And so I'm okay with it being an executive director, because of the weight of this position carries. My looking at the job description, the comments that I have is that for number 9, I'd really like the word promote to say ensure instead of promote fair, equitable, and consistent employment practices, that it says ensure fair, equitable, and consistent employment practices. And I know that's nitpicky, but and the only other comment that I have is I looked at the old assistant superintendent job description that was passed in July of 23 when we created the executive director of operations job and kind of separated that out. And some of the things that I found in that job description that are not reflected in the new executive director of human resources, nor the other positions that we realigned last year when we made cuts, were like who will oversee the parent-student handbook, who will oversee discipline, attendance, oversee partnership with law enforcement and a focus on student safety, McKinney-Vento management, athletics, and child study. So it would just be my request that administration look at those and see where they're going to fall under other jobs to just ensure that we're covered, if this gets approved by the board.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we reclassify the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services to an Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Services.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We can take a vote.
Can I just ask
Mr.
one?
Todd?
Sorry, can I ask one question?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Todd, I just want to clarify that the motion was for it to be reclassified as an executive director.
Yes, exactly as mentioned in the
Okay.
Yeah.
agenda.
Thank you.
Okay. So yes, we're voting on reclassifying the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services to Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Services. So we have a motion by Mr. Todd and a second by Mr. Kenyon, and we can vote on that. Mr. Todd,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Aye.
Mr. Cirincione.
Aye.
I'm also an aye. Will show that passed 5-0. Agenda item 6.5, discussion consideration to approve organizational chart revisions for FY 26-27. Dr. Avila, can you speak to this?
Madam President, members of the governing board, This evening, we're presenting the organizational chart that reflects the reclassification of the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources to Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Services. That edit will be made. The organizational chart also. Do you want to pull that up? Just pull it up so you can see it. Will also reflect the transition of the Executive Director of Special Services to directly report to the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. The intent of this change is to create greater collaboration and coherence, and also as well coordinate these areas while ensuring that our students, including those receiving special education services, are supported by the educational services team.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from any of our board members?
Madam President,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm a little perplexed. All the executive director positions, except for one, have a direct line to the superintendent. If we talk about this, it seems a little strange. I would recommend that the executive director of special ed has a direct report to the superintendent with a dotted report to the assistant superintendent of ed services, which is shown here on a couple other positions in the org chart. But it does make that position look a little less, and I think our special ed students should get the same. The whole special ed department is the executive director should have the same reporting structure that all other executive directors have. I would recommend that we do the direct report to the superintendent to match the other executive director positions, and then a dotted line to the assistant superintendent of ed services. And that would probably be more fair and equitable as well.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, please.
Who all had input on this?
I don't have that information.
You know if Dr. Doozy seen this?
Madam President, members of the governing board, this is approved by Dr. Doozy.
So this is how she wants her stuff set up. Okay.
Sorry.
I make a motion to approve organizational chart revisions for FY 26-27.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the organizational chart. We can vote. Mr. Todd.
Madam President, I still would like to discuss this, the executive director of special education. It is not fair, it's not equitable that executive director has a different reporting structure than the rest of them. That needs to be the same as all the other executive directors, or that position probably needs to be something other than an executive director role. But it's not right to knock that one position down. That I think that was probably an oversight, and there should still be a dotted line. So we can discuss that as a board or offer an amendment.
I mean, I see that as the executive director is reporting to this assistant soup because that's the only assistant soup there is. No one else has an assistant soup to report to. So it's not that it's lower, it's just that they have an assistant soup and the others don't. I mean, at least that would be my my way of reading the chart, but other people can have other comments or opinions potentially, but
I'm just saying there
it's
should
just
be
that those two are linked together, and so they report to the only assistant superintendent we have of ed services.
I just think there should be at least a dotted line moving up to the superintendent if they're an executive director position. Or preferably a solid line to the superintendent, a dotted line over to the assistant superintendent. We have one executive director that has an additional layer that just doesn't look equal. Regardless of whether there's an assistant superintendent or not, those other folks have a direct shot to the superintendent, and then this executive director does not.
Ms. Schmidt.
Go ahead.
I see what you're saying, but I guess I don't understand how I don't see it as like the executive director is not going to have access to the superintendent or not be involved in cabinet. I don't see it as that. I mean, I see it as special education falls under education services. And so that's just how it's linked. And the fact that it is the only assistant superintendent, it wouldn't make sense for these other people to fall under the assistant superintendent of ed services. So
So what would be the problem of reader and putting a dotted line there? Just as we've done with a couple other positions, you have plant managers that can jump all the way to school principals, and you have the same type of situation. We could easily put a dotted line to make that work, and then ensure that that's there.
Okay, so you would be happy with a dotted line from the executive director of special education to the superintendent, but leaving the solid line as it is.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think ultimately we should probably do a solid line to the superintendent with a dotted line over to the assistant superintendent. Only because a lot of times the assistant superintendent of ed services does not have a lot of knowledge in special ed. That's a very special position. And if they've got a blockade, they need to be able to move forward. I'll settle for a dotted line up there. I think it should be solid to the superintendent with a dotted line over to the assistant superintendent, but I would settle for the inverse of that.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'm okay with the way it is. This is how the incoming superintendent wants to set up her cabinet, or not cabinet, but her staff. I'm okay with it.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead.
I honestly, I don't see it changing much. I'm okay either way, whether we have the dotted line, whether we don't, as long as we know that there's support there. So I'll go with what the board would like. I do understand Dr. Doozy was the one that gave her stamp of approval on this as is, and whether she would like that change. I wish she was able to make it here tonight, but she had some other commitments. But I'm okay either way, whether it be a dotted line going up to the superintendent or leaving as is, with the understanding that they can talk to the superintendent whenever.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it would be helpful if we had her here for the discussion of this. I mean, maybe we have a motion a second, but maybe we table this so we can talk to her and discuss this a little bit more.
President Schmidt
Yes.
and fellow board members, if I can just mention something. In previous board updates, when the previous superintendent was here, if you remember that there has always been an organizational chart that was attached and linked in the board update. I do have an organizational chart, and this is just the one that just came up from January 27th of 26. And it does have the assistant sup of ed services. It was an open position. And then a line down, you would have the executive director of special education. Right along with the assistant sup of ed services, along that, you have the assistant sup of human resources. So that executive director of special education has always reported to that assistant sup of ed services. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Camarado.
Madam President.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready to vote on this. And if Dr. Juicy comes back and says, you know what, I want to change it, then we'll address it at that point too. I don't
They can
see
bring
the
it
issue.
back. Okay. All right. Well, we have a motion and a second, so we can take a vote. Mr. Todd?
I'll be an aye.
Okay. Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Aye.
Mr. Cerancione?
Aye.
I'm also an aye. We also got passed 5-0. All right. Moving on to item 7.1, board comments or agenda topic requests. Do we have anything from board members at this time?
Madam President, I have a few.
Okay.
One, prior to Dr. Mahorn's medical issue, we had requested to look at a stipend for her for the additional work she did while she was in that position. At the time, you said you would wait until she returned to agendize that, but she has returned, and I think we do need to talk about that. We have provided stipends to everybody who's done extra work. Dr. Mahorn has done a lot of work, so I would like to have that on the agenda. Secondly, I'd like to discuss consultants, and I think we should put it on the table to eliminate all consultants from the district until we have full staffing in the classrooms. I would like to, I already requested previously, but at the last board meeting, there were 3 board members who voted on the override. I'd like to reconsider that. Trying to read my writing here, I'm sorry. I'd like to list of all, staff to prepare a list of all grant-funded positions over the past 6 years that have been carried over into permanent positions. And that's the end of my list.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Okay. Yes.
I would just ask that our new superintendent look at the document where all of the previous agenda topic requests are, because there are quite a bit. But there are 2 things that I think are more urgent that really should be addressed in the July meeting. And that is that we look at the parent-student handbook, and in particular, volunteers and field trips. There seems to still be so much confusion. Even though the board has made direct action on this, it still seems to be a problem. And we need to align the district discipline matrix with the new trust policies. I requested this last year on June 18th when we adopted the new policies, and we still have yet to do that.
Any other requests at this time?
Madam President, I just want to reiterate the liquidated damages not addressing administrative contracts. I think we need to take care of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If they are not already on the spreadsheet, please remember to put them on the spreadsheet. And I will acknowledge that there are many things that are on there that some have been assigned out, and hopefully we're getting responses from district departments from that. And others, we just did not have the staff needed to do them, but I think we are getting close to being fully staffed. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward on quite a few of them in the next upcoming meetings. So fingers crossed we can do that. All right. 8.1 upcoming board meetings. We're going to have a special board meeting on Monday, June 22nd. Board members should have been informed because we did ask for availability for that. Hopefully that will be a short one. And then our next regular board meeting is Tuesday, July 14th. And then our next is Tuesday, August 11th. So remember, we're moving to Tuesday as of July, just as a reminder. And with that, we can move to 9.1 and adjourn the meeting at 7:39 p.m.